Now, what are selectors? I explained selectors earlier to mean the target rules. Okay, many types of CSS selectors that allow you to target rules to specific elements in an HTML document. CSS selectors are also case sensitive. Remember, when we're doing HTML, we told you HTML is case insensitive, but CSS selectors are case sensitive. So you make sure that whichever selector you are picking and applying values to it or properties to it must be exactly the way it is in the HTML. Okay, so if it is a small p, it should be a small p. Okay, so that it will match the element names. Other than that, you'll be styling different elements that we are not ready to change its value. And there are some advanced selectors which allow you to select elements based on attributes and their values. We explain all those ones very soon. Now look at this 3-column table. This 3-column table has selectors in the first column, the meaning or what those selectors mean, and an example is given. Okay, if you want to apply those particular rules. The first one is universal selector. A universal selector is what? An asterisk here. Okay, an asterisk and the curly bracket, so that every property and value should be within the curly bracket. What this one does is that, as the name suggests, universal. It applies to all elements in the document. So if you want to apply a particular style to almost everything in the document, in your styling, you use don't use body, don't use P to represent paragraph, don't use H1, H2, H3. What you have to do is use asterisk. The asterisk simply means it will apply to almost every element. Another type of selector is what you call the type selector. In this case, you are being specific to a particular element. So if you check here, H1, H2, H3, this is just like the example we explained earlier. This target only the specific type that have been stated. So if it's a P, you indicate a P. H1, H2, H3, P. You apply the same rules to them, and the property and the value will be within the curly bracket. Class selectors. In class selectors, we are trying to narrow down what we want to do. Okay, in class selectors, we precede the name of the class with what? Dot, to indicate that it is what? It is a class. So let's say if an element contains a class of what? Note, it is going to target the class attribute that has the value of note. It wouldn't apply to any other thing else. An ID is different from a class selector. An ID selector also, okay, precedes with what? With a hash. It doesn't proceed with a dot. A dot or a full stop or a period is always related to classes, class selectors. And ID selectors are also preceded by what? Hash, or others call it pound. And all our properties and values are contained within the curly bracket. There's a child selector. Let's say you have a parent element. Within the parent element, there is a child element in there. You can decide to target only the child, so that it doesn't apply to the entire element. Let's say the heading. Let's say the heading or an order list contain a list of items. You can decide to take the particular list item, let's say the third one, and then we'll style it by giving it a particular class or a particular ID, so we can easily target it. But in this child selector, it matches an element that is direct child of another. For instance, in this case, there is a list, and inside the list there is an anchor, that is a link. Okay, this targets any element that are children of an element, but not other elements in the page. So in this case, the anchor is specific to a list item. So this is how you represent it. Li, they do the right angle bracket, and then you indicate the name of the child. All your settings and all your properties should be within the curly brackets. Apart from child selector, we also have descendant selector. This matches an element that is a descendant of another specified element, not just a direct child of that element. For example, inside the paragraph, there's a descendant, which is what? An anchor. For the rule of the child, it is direct child of the selector, but in descendant, it is not direct, okay, but it can also be a direct child of a different element that has been specified. So in this case, this PA targets any anchor element that sit in a paragraph element, even if there are other elements nested between them. Okay, and we have adjacent sibling selector. Adjacent sibling selector. This matches an element that is next sibling to another. And how you represent it, let's say H1, and there's a plus and there's a P, and all your properties and values will come between the curly brackets. What this rule means is that it should target the first paragraph, okay, after any level 1 heading element, but not other paragraphs. It should be the first paragraphs of every H1 element. And we also have a general sibling. In this case, not an adjacent sibling, but a general sibling. So for instance, you have two elements that are siblings of an element. This rule will apply to both of them. It's a general sibling. This one is adjacent sibling. So this one is kind of specific to the paragraph that comes directly after a heading, level 1 heading. So if I want first paragraph between after a level 2 heading, I'll do H2 plus P. Okay, so that's how this adjacent sibling works. And the general sibling apply to what? Let's say all the siblings within a particular element.